Okay, we are recording live. Thank you very much, everybody, for dropping in on the show today. Devin unfortunately isn't here. I think he was working late last night and been very busy in the film and performing arts industry here. So a lot of late shoots and things like that. So we're going to run with today. And yeah, today we're really, really fortunate. And today we talk about ADD and dyslexia as a superpower. And our guest is a founder of Your Parenting Partner and the host of a popular podcast for busy moms called Parenting in the Thick of It. So here we welcome Louise Clarke to our show. And before we start, I just want to mention, please, if you like our show, please like, share, and subscribe. We really, really, really appreciate if you subscribe. And this episode is sponsored. We're fortunate to have some sponsors by Hollyhock, which is dedicated to helping create a better future via education and personal sharing. So check out Hollyhock. And also, Devin and I, my son, we created a little organization called giftadd.com, and it's a movement that we founded to help dispel the myth that ADD and dyslexia is a curse, but it's actually a superpower. So check that out too at giftadd.com. And but before we start here with Louise, what we like to do is we do something called Two Truths and a Lie. So welcome Louise to our show. We're really stoked to have you on here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to chat to you, and always enjoy talking about ADD and the trying to see the gifts of it rather than the hindrance of it. But yeah, looking forward to our conversation.
And you're in Whistler, right? You're in Whistler right now on a beautiful sunny day.
I am, yes. It's a bluebird day and just gorgeous. So looking forward to getting out with the dog later on.
Yeah, likewise here. I'm in North Vancouver and it's just as sunny, and we're going to do the same right after we chat. So I'm going to start off here with our two truths and a lie. So what Louise has given us is a couple of things that are a truth and also a little lie thrown in here as well. We have to guess, or I'm going to guess because Dev's not here. I'm going to guess which one is the lie. Okay, so number one, when I was in primary school, I had a broken nose by a boy swinging a cricket bat. So that's possible, because you have a little bit of an accent there, which you could be from a cricket country.
I am from a cricket country.
Yeah, from a cricket country. Okay. Number two, I interrupted a burglar in my house when I was living in South Africa.
I went to university in South Africa. I lived in Cape Town for 8 years.
Oh, you're in Cape Town. Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful spot. Yeah. Another one here. I wrote a book called Parenting the Modern Teen, which I believe. And last but not least, while growing up, I lived next door to my future husband. Wow. God, they're all totally plausible here. I'm going to go for, I think you broke somebody's nose with a cricket bat. I can believe that. Sure, why not? Maybe not next door. Maybe not quite next door to your future husband. Yeah, I don't know. So
which one are you going for?
Well, I'm gonna go the lie. The lie I'm gonna say is you didn't grow up next to your future husband.
I did grow up next door to my future husband.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, we were in the same class at school from when we were 8 years old, and we lived next door to each other.
Oh man.
Yes.
Okay.
And but we didn't actually get together until we were 26. So, but we were good friends, and we lived next door to each other. I know it's not believable. That's why I threw it in.
I think we've had another guest that had that in theirs as well, and that was also true.
Right. And the other one that I did interrupt a burglar in my house in South Africa.
In South Africa.
Not nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did not have my nose broken by a boy with a cricket bat. That was the lie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where are you originally from?
I'm from a tiny village, and I was born in Scotland, in a tiny village between smack bang in the middle of Scotland between Stirling and St Andrews. So
Oh yeah.
about 45 minutes north of Edinburgh.
Of Edinburgh. Yeah. Wow. So this is kind of funny. My wife and I just booked. My cousin lives in. I was actually born in Wales, in the UK, and we immigrated in the '60s to Vancouver. But we just booked a trek or a walk in Scotland, like today, this morning, before our call with my cousin in London, and we're going to do a 9-day. They go pub to pub or inn to inn, where you go 20 kilometers
fantastic.
a day trek. Yeah. Across Scotland out to, I think, to Fort William. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be magnificent.
Yeah,
Take
we're
your
going in
Gore-Tex.
April. I know. We're going in April, beginning of
don't
April.
bother with an umbrella because it turns inside out the minute you pop it out. So yeah, ditch the umbrella, take the Gore-Tex, Gore-Tex jacket, Gore-Tex pants, Gore-Tex shoes. It'll be good. It will be very atmospheric, and you might have beautiful sunshine.
Yeah,
you never know. It's always a gamble in Scotland.
I know. We were joking about it yesterday. We had a Zoom call with him, and we are like, "What are we wearing?" He goes, "Use everything because it's Scotland and it's April." So yeah.
Well, I was there in November for 16 days, and I had 2 hours of drizzle in 16 days. Wow. Period.
So there you go.
You never know. I hope it's like that in April.
I know. Yeah, well, there's always a warm pub at the end of the line there somewhere anyway. So, right.
Absolutely.
And some great whiskey.
Yeah. Yes. Warm from the inside out.
Or from the inside out, exactly. So, so getting to what you're up to. So you're a parent, right? And you're also a mindfulness coach. So those, I guess those go hand in hand. It'd be great to know a lot about mindfulness. If I knew that now before becoming a parent, it sure would have helped us a lot, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're.
I am. I mean, I qualified as a sports physio in my heyday, but when we came to Canada, I would have had to requalify and go straight back to university and do it all again. And I had 3 kids under the age of 4, and it wasn't going to happen. And we inadvertently got invited to a parenting group for some parent coaching, not having a clue what we were letting ourselves in for. And to cut a long story short, 16 years later, we're still part of that group of parents that meet regularly with a coach. And about 4 years into it, the counselor actually said to me, "I think you should do this." I kind of looked behind me and I'm like, "Me?" And he went, "Yeah, I think you should do it." So I did. So I, qualified and did this and did that, and have been working as a parent coach and mindfulness coach for well over 10 years now, and I love it. And the mindfulness is huge, and it absolutely does help. And people often ask me, what is the single most helpful thing you have done as a parent? And I think it is without doubt the parent coaching that we have, and we're lucky to have it ongoing, because you never get it as a parent. No. You understand what you quote unquote should be doing, but every day is different. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know they're going to come home stoned, or they might fail an exam, or they decide they're not going to do the one thing that everybody thought they were going to do. You never know. So we need to evolve continuously. It's a work in progress. So the coaching was helpful, and I meditate, and I've been meditating twice daily for years and years now. And people ask me, why does it help you? And for me, I can only speak for myself, is the meditation has raised my awareness for my thinking pattern, and it strengthened my awareness, because when you meditate, you're sitting still, and the opportunity to watch the thoughts and notice when you get hooked in and taken off on a tangent. And so when you meditate, you're aware, you become stronger and of your awareness of where your thinking is, so you can come back to a still space. And I focus on my breath. There's many ways to meditate. So take that into the real world. I know when I am not where my mind is, or my mind is not where I am. And as a parent, most parents, they don't realize it, especially when we're dealing with kids with ADD or learning challenges. The fear for parents is huge. So when you're in fear, you're in the future,
Yep.
or you're ruminating over something that happened, and it strips you from being in this moment. And when we're in fear, our brain doesn't recognize the difference between real threat and perceived threat or imagined threat. It just goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And when we're in that space, we're not so good at parenting because we are reactive.
No, we're not. And I mean, this first 1 minute that we've talked just put the nail on the head for me for everything. I wish I knew exactly what you said, 20 years ago, before we started, because our kids are now 27, 25, and 21. And we're doing it. My wife and I are doing it backwards, where we're getting into, well, we have been getting into mindfulness for the past few years, but we never did anything when our kids were young. And I look just like you said, I reflect back. And if I go from the state we're in now, and if I use some of that back then, it would have helped so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
And now I'm turning 60 next month. And now I'm just starting to figure out the benefits of mindfulness and et cetera, and meditation. And I mean, I'm heavily into the cold water plunging and all that, because that helps really zone me right in. Like at Whistler there, I go, Needle Lake, the little Needle Lake there.
Oh, do you dunk in the lake?
Yeah, there's that ice hole, that ice hole right there. Yeah, we go down there and we go in, and I have a pool here. But the one thing, it really helps me hyper focus and hyper meditate. But I'm just doing that now. So if I knew some of these tricks or these, not tricks, but these methods before, when our kids were younger, oh my gosh. I mean, this is
I can't say, well, I wish I'd known it before, because I did know it before. But I know through working with parents one-on-one in my clinical practice and in the group coaching I do, I know, and we know from statistics that for 50% of our waking hours, our minds are not where we are. We're on autopilot. So we're missing out on so much.
Yeah.
But because, we're either, well, where are we? We're either worried about something happening again, or we're ruminating over something we wish we'd done a different way, and we're not here. And so we become reactive to what's here in the moment. And it might be your kid who's left his hoodie at the football field for the 10th time, or they're late, or their backpack's a gong show, whatever it is that you're struggling with. But if your mind's elsewhere, you can't focus on what's happening here and now. And then we become reactive to the here and now. When we're reactive, we say things we don't mean. We might be critical. We might be judgmental. And I'm not sitting here, Nigel, saying by any means that I'm the perfect parent. I'm far from it. There is no such thing. No. And I know certainly pre me doing all this work, I was way more judgmental and critical, especially of my son with ADD. Because it's very difficult to live with kids who are exhibiting symptoms of ADD. And so it makes us reactive. It makes us, judge them, compare them, belittle them, blame them, criticize them. And we don't intentionally do it. But, all you need to say is, seriously, you've left your hoodie at the field again? What are you thinking? What's wrong with you? Why don't you get it? We say these things, and these comments and phrases stick with the kids, and they don't then feel very good about themselves. And for the ADD child, I mean, my son, his report card was continually, it was like a record on repeat: needs to pay attention, needs to focus more, needs to be less of a distraction, needs to put more effort in. And he's heard that all his life, life. And then, just to cap it, they are labeled with a thing called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I mean, I think it's the most dreadful label to put on any child. Or the other one that gets me is the oppositional defiance disorder. Imagine aged 8 being told you have oppositional defiance, you're defiant. I think these are dreadful labels to put on kids. So
well, I know, I mean, I'm talking about ADD and dyslexia and whatnot. So both my son Devin here and I are both ADD and dyslexic. We've had that label, but I'm now like I am 60, turning 60. And as a kid, I went through hell. I absolutely went through hell in elementary school and school. And then I went to BCIT. I don't know how the heck I got through BCIT, but I remember in class, a lady would come and she'd pull me out of class. So so I would get pulled out. The different one, I would get taken because I couldn't read, and I got taken into this back room and taught to read. And then you come back and everybody's looking at you, and it's like, you remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoons? They'd have the big dunce hat sitting in the corner. Well, that's exactly how I felt all my life. And I don't know if your son ever did this, but I would create distractions in class because God forbid the teacher's going to ask me to read out loud, stand up and read, 3 pages. So I'd knock everything off my desk. I'd create a diversion. He would get so frustrated, he'd go to the next person. And I continually did things like that. So I wouldn't, and I just became this, I had zero self-confidence. I never said a word. I don't think I ever raised my hand in school once to answer a question. Terrified. But then when I got out of school, I started realizing, actually, I'm not as dumb as I think I am. And then things just started evolving once I real, but it was really, really, really tough. And I know Devin, my son, had, I think, even a worse time than I did, where same thing, through school. He went to a special school for dyslexic and ADD kids, and which I don't know if it helped him or not.
My youngest went there for 2 years. My youngest has dyslexia. My eldest has ADD. And my youngest went to a special school in North Vancouver, probably the same one that Devin did.
It moved from Burnaby to North Vance. It's probably the same school. And I think it probably does help a lot of the students. Devin, he wanted to go to high school, so he came back into his high school. Same thing, getting dragged into the principal's office. And I'm sorry, Devin, telling stories about you without you here, but the principal and vice principal would be there, and Reiko and I'd be sitting in the principal's office, and they go, "Do you realize that your son has missed 150 blocks already? And it's not even Christmas yet." And we're like, I didn't even know there were that many in that period. And it was, and it was really, really tough. It was tough on Dev. But when he finally was able to get out of school and realize that he just blossomed. He just absolutely blossomed. And we're all just super proud of him. He's an actor now, and he has his own flow arts company where they do fire spinning, and they do these LEDs and they're just fully booked, fully busy all the time. Coming out of COVID here, they don't have, 10 minutes. But to realize that it took a long time, that I'm sure he went through the same thing as me. He's like, I'm really not a dummy. I really like doing this. And I actually think I might have a superpower because I can see things that other people don't. I just assumed everybody could do this or see this or envision this far in the future. But that's not so. So it's really, sorry, you kind of got, it's a subject that I feel really deeply about.
And then, I can Devin, hear that you're passionate about it.
And Devin, and then I had a coach for like 15 years, Kevin Lawrence, and he's also dyslexic or ADD. And then he said, Nigel, do you realize that pretty much 90% of my clients, who are all CEOs all over the world, Australia, Dubai, you name it, he says, they're all the same. There's something funny going on here. So we created this group called giftadd.com to try and dispel this myth that ADD and dyslexia is a curse. It's actually a superpower or a gift.
Absolutely. And have you read the book by Lara Honos Webb called The Gift of ADHD?
I have got it, but I haven't. I think I've thumbed through it, but I haven't.
I did a book club series, a podcast book club series on that book, and I also did another series on a book called What Your ADHD Child Wishes You Knew by Sharon Celine. And both those books are fantastic. And so I work through them, and then I interview the authors on the show afterwards. So that they were really popular on my podcast.
Yeah.
But, the gift of ADHD, if we can see it as a gift and not a curse. And, the irony with ADHD and the label is it's not a deficit of attention. It's a dysregulation of attention. And today in this digital world, we are all, attention is the prized commodity because we're being stripped of attention because we're being pulled in so many different directions now. We can't pay attention for a second without looking at our phone or looking at our watch or doing this. There's so many things vying for our attention. But it's not the way I understand it is not a deficit of attention, it's a dysregulation of attention. And you speak to anyone with ADD and or you speak to a parent of a child with ADD, and you might be able to speak to this with regard to you parenting Devon.
Yeah.
People with ADD are so hyper-focused once their attention's on something.
Absolutely.
There's no problem with attention. There's no deficit of it.
Yeah.
They're so hyper-focused. My son could be, if he's actually zoned in a room, in a house, the whole house could go on fire and he wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
Because he's so zoned in. And I think that's the gift. And you see, Bill, Richard Branson, the Starbucks CEO, there's all sorts of a lot of CEOs. Many of them are quite open about the fact they have ADD.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a list here talking about that. You've got everybody from Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, Leonardo da Vinci, Pablo Picasso. I got Keanu Reeves, Daniel Radcliffe, Steve Spielberg, Anderson Cooper. Like it goes, that the list is massive. And, for the kids that are think that like they are suffering from this, it's to to look at and say, hey, did you realize that they have this special gift like you do? Right.
And Dr. Ned Hallowell, who's a ADHD specialist on the East Coast, I've heard him speak. He was in Vancouver a few years ago. He's a really great guy, and he describes it as having a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes. The brain's out of control, but there's no stopping it. Right. So he said, we have to improve the braking system because there's nothing wrong with that brain. In fact, the brain is, everyone's brain, they're miraculous organs that allow us to do and think and get where we get in life. And they're, the super center. Yeah. But an ADHD brain, there's nothing wrong with them. Yeah. And it breaks my heart to see kids labeled otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting that you said that ADD kids, how, when they focus, they can super focus. And that was like me. And I think that's why I was attracted to kind of extreme sports. So I was heavily into rock climbing for many years and backcountry skiing and surfing and anything that would give me that, the adrenaline rush. But in the zone, I was super hyper focused. Like rock climbing, like when you're climbing, you can't think of anything else. Right. You're right there. And you have to think about your next move. It's like a chess game. You have to think about the next, and you're there. You're not out here, you're there. And I know when Kevin and Devon and I were talking about it, to get into those zones. I mean, sometimes, even in business, because I belong to these various business groups, entrepreneurs organization and whatnot. And I find that even in business, when things are going crazy and you're hyper-focused. Like I actually operate better in those situations when things are kind of easy. If things are easy and soft, I'm drifting off all over. I'm not interested. But if it's a crisis, I can super hyper-focus. And I know, so for example, I was in Peru for a few weeks and Devon was here in Vancouver. And now he's super interested in these NFTs. So the metaverse NFTs and cryptocurrency and blockchain and all this. So he's calling me. It's like 4:00 in the morning in Vancouver time. And he's because he's super hyper focused on learning and doing this. It's something that he gets obsessed about, but he's super interested in it. In school, math and whatever, it wasn't. But now he's like potential to learn and maybe make a bit of money on it or whatever it is. Well, it's like, and his acting is the same thing. He gets a script and it's like, woof. He doesn't read the script because he has a hard time reading it. So he memorizes it, but he'll memorize 10 pages and he'll just, it's just because he's focused on it. It's remarkable. It's remarkable what these people can do.
Yeah. I mean, my eldest did a 1-year study on ADD, part of his grade 9 year at the school he was at. They did a masterworks and he did his on ADD. And when they have to write a kind of 25 to 30 page paper, aged 14, it's quite something. Wow. And then they have to present this paper in front of 100 people and a panel of judges. So he does it on ADD because he wants to learn a bit more about ADD, and he's involved. He's in it. He has it, And it's fascinating to watch his presentation. It's actually on YouTube.
Is it really? Okay,
But
great. Wow.
he starts the presentation and the audience is distinctly uncomfortable because he plays two films at the same time. Not two films, he has a film playing and he has David Suzuki giving some talk on environmental change, climate change.
Yeah.
But the film's on and David Suzuki speaking, and everyone sitting in the audience going, what's going on? Because they couldn't focus, right? There was one thing on, another thing on. My son's standing there watching them all. Right. And he hit stop and he said, welcome to my world. Welcome to the world of ADD.
That's great.
Because all of it's vying for his attention. You know, and he said, that's what it's like. I sit in a classroom and I can see the sun shining. I can see my friend has done this. The teacher's doing something. My desk, I've got my pen and I can't work out what to pay attention to. Yeah. But once I've worked out what to pay attention to, it's awesome. Yeah. And it was quite interesting. And
that's fantastic. Yeah. It's so true. When you were going through that.
It was a good analogy for him.
Well, I was going into my own head when you were doing that. You know, because when you started saying that, because I'm listening to you right now, but then the sun is coming in, and like, Nigel, don't look at the sun. Like we're focusing here. It's I can totally feel it when you said that. I can totally feel everything that you said.
Yeah. So I mean, I help parents deal with how do they show up in the face of it, right? Because you can't change it. Your child has ADD, and there's various characteristics of it that are frustrating for others to live with, for non-ADD people to live with. We have characteristics, I'm not ADD, and there's lots of things that are frustrating for other people to live with me. Yeah. But the ADD characteristics are frustrating. So, how do we as parents cope with it so as to not strip them of their, sense of worth and belonging and being seen and heard and feeling good about themselves through our inadvertent comments because we are frustrated and pissed off with them because they were late or they're not organized, they forgot their lunch, their cleats are at Johnny's house and they're supposed to be, the list is endless. How do we parent that? Yeah. How do we not react to it? How do we not say it? How do we support them? How do we encourage them? So, I work with parents to help them control themselves in the face of these desperately frustrating symptoms and characteristics that their child has and that is evident in their behavior. And that's what I spend that's what I spend my time doing, whether it's ADD or not. We have to be able to, as adults, control ourselves in the face of whatever our kids say and do. And that's hard.
It's very hard. Yeah.
But if we can do that, we stand a better chance of raising them and meeting their needs.
I mean, I wish that we, the Reiko and I, we had, number one, like what you said at the beginning, there is mindfulness. I have some mindfulness practices before, and then also had a coach for our kids. Because I had a coach, but it was more for me. It was a business coach, but helping. I mean, we did go and see some people along the way. They're more like counselors and whatnot. But to have somebody kind of checking in occasionally on how things are going with raising your kids and for you would have been invaluable. And I talk like in my book and in my podcast and whatnot, I talk about the value of coach. Like everybody should have a coach. Everybody should have some kind of a support, and because we can't do life alone. We just can't do life alone.
No.
I would be a basket case if I didn't have, my coach and the support around me. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you raise a valid point that parents, they, with kids with ADD or with learning differences, they take the kids to a counselor, but the whole session is focused on the kid and how the kid can do X, Y, and Z. But it's very rare that they actually take that spotlight and put it onto the parent and say, so how are you going to make sure you can do this to support them? Because if you're losing your shit all the time and yelling at them and frustrated with them and always telling them what they haven't done, should have done, pay more attention, Why can't you put more effort into your math? If the parent can't actually turn themselves around, the kid's not going to thrive, and the relationship's not going to thrive.
Yeah.
And so the parents really do need help. But I think there's this stigma attached, certainly for parents, that you become a parent and you think you should know how to do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come with a manual. And we have kids and think, oh, I'm going to be the best mom. I'm going to be so good.
Yeah.
And then we realize, oh, not
Every
quite
kid
so
is different.
easy.
Every kid
Every
is
kid's
different.
different.
We have 3 and they're so different.
You
They're
can't
so
parent them the
different.
same way.
No. No.
But you have to parent yourself. You know, you
Mhm.
have to keep yourself in check. And that's what's really hard.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
we can do it with other people. You know, if you're in a boardroom and you're a CEO and you're having a meeting with everyone and something is really irritating you, or somebody is really irritating you, because there's no emotional kind of enmeshment and deep connection there, and they're not yours, quote unquote, as in your kids, there's a buffer. You can usually control yourself in that situation. But when it's your kid in there, you know, maybe arguing with you or disagreeing with you on something, or they've done something really stupid. Why do you took the car at midnight without their driving license? You know, whatever they might do.
Yeah.
We seem to think as parents we just are allowed to speak however we want to them, and sometimes we're not as respectful as we need to be.
Yeah.
Even if the kid has done something wrong, they don't deserve disrespect. They don't deserve to be yelled at, shouted at, blamed, criticized.
Yeah.
There's ways of doing it, and that is what I think is so valuable to parents, is to be able to find ways to control themselves. And so as a coach, that's what I work on.
Because I know we struggled with it. At least I did. Rico was a little bit more we'd kind of balance off each other, but then there were certain times I get really angry, and I just remember saying, why do you hate us? Well, what have we done to deserve, like, I say really stupid things.
We all have,
because
so
they're coming out of here. They're coming out of your emotional reaction as opposed to your, practical, or, and yeah, and they can be very hurtful.
Right? They can be very hurtful, but the kid is only, if we put ourselves in the kid's shoes, they're just trying to cope. They're actually in fight, flight, or freeze. They're out of control, and their way of dealing with it is to blame us or whatever, project it onto us. And then we as parents, we need to be able to face that and take it and not take it personally, and not criticize back and project all of our crap back onto them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it must be not hell, but it must be really difficult now with all of this stuff,
I knew you were going to pick up your cell phone.
I had my dinger. I apologize. I just had to turn it off. I thought I heard something outside of my dinger was on.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
so how do like with a kid with ADD or whatnot these days, how do you like your attention on these things? It's hard enough. Like, it's really hard for me, to be, and I realize that I have this, you gotta.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I mean, I could speak for 12 hours on this alone, and I won't. Don't worry. I'm aware of your time. But there's a very well-known child psychologist called Victoria Dunkley, and she will not test any child for ADHD until they've had a 4-week detox from all electronics. Because now what they're seeing, if 20 years ago, if you'd taken an ADD brain and a neurotypical brain and an ADD brain, they'd have, and they wire them up to all these electrical things, and then they can see the activity in the brain. There were noticeable differences between the two, which led them to believe, okay, the ADD brain, this is how it works. And this is what lights up when you do X, Y, and Z. I mean, I'm talking as if I know. I'm very, very basic terms here, but there was a difference. Now, when they take an ADD brain and a neurotypical brain, there is almost no difference, because the neurotypical brain, under the influence of devices, technology, is the symptoms of overuse are exactly the same as ADD.
Yeah, yeah.
The inability to focus,
Makes
pay
sense.
attention, distracted, they're all symptoms of ADD. And it's
Right.
the technology, the influence of the technology on the brain that is causing the brain to change. So is there an increased incidence of ADD now as to compare to 10 years ago? We don't know. I don't know.
Mm.
The experts might know, but they will tell you that there's very little difference between an ADD brain and a neurotypical brain now, because the neurotypical brains look like what an ADD brain looked like back then, which I
Right.
find quite fascinating, but it doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me in the slightest. So
Yeah.
she will not test for ADD until the parents have said he has had no influence by technology for 4 weeks. And she's
Wow.
got a book, The 4 Week Screen Detox.
Wow. Wow.
And then when they test them, now here's the other interesting thing, and you know what I'm going to say,
Mm.
is the symptoms that were very evident while they were have a nice high media diet, they're almost gone. In other words, take
Yeah.
away technology, and this child actually doesn't exhibit a lot of the symptoms anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the influence of technology on an ADD is a very interesting one, and they don't fuel each other well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's a whole new world that we're living in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just my humble opinion, and
Yeah.
I'm not the expert by any means, but
Yeah.
I read a lot of stuff and I find it quite fascinating.
Right. Right. And you're
Mhm.
actually the author. You said it's parenting the modern teen, right?
Yes, I've written an ebook called Parenting the
Mm-hmm.
Modern Teen,
Yeah.
and it covers all sorts of things and a little bit on technology. I have various courses that I offer as
Uh-huh.
well. I've got
Yep.
online courses. I've got 5 or 6 online courses, my book, and I've got an online course called Tech and Teens, and then I've got another one called The
Tech and
Screen.
teens. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the other one called The Screen, I think it's called The Screen Solution, or The Screen Solution.
Right.
How do we as parents navigate life with kids and technology? It's really hard.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
kids are almost 17, 19, and 21.
Yeah.
And so I consider myself lucky, because they didn't have cell phones or iPads when they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
My eldest was 10, 11 when he got the flip phone.
Yeah.
So they had their childhood.
Yeah.
But
Same with our
the
kids. Same with our kids. It's
kids to
now it's
yeah, they're robbed of their childhood.
yeah.
They spend so much time with their face in a phone or a device,
Yeah.
and it's robbing them of the experience and capacity to develop real world skills,
Yeah.
virtual
Yeah. And,
world.
and I think
But
also I kind of reflect back over the past couple of years here, and I hate talking about COVID and all this stuff, but being so you're 17, 18, 19, but if you're like 14, 15, 16, maybe 17 and 18, you're in that zone. That is the time of your life. At least I remember it. I mean, I didn't have a phone, I didn't have any of this stuff, but it was like going to a music concert, going to a music festival, going out with your friends and socializing, bonding. That is a key time in our lives where we develop all these things.
mhm,
And with everything been shut down for 2 years, and now you're stuck at home, and you're doing this, and you're video gaming, and you can't go out. It's a little bit scary
it is
on
scary
what's going to
because
come out the other end in 10 years from now with those
yeah,
people that grew up in that era where you couldn't go to the music festival with your, and experience these, like you said, these life
mhm,
experiences.
yeah,
This thing that's missing. And that's a key part of development in that period in their
yeah.
lives, right?
And I mean, I think
Yeah.
if we'd had to face a pandemic without technology, it would have had a very different effect on us. And so we
True.
can say,
True.
yeah, our technology was many of our lifelines, because we could at least see
Well,
people on
we could do
Zoom.
this. We're
We
zooming,
could,
right?
yeah. And there's, tremendous advantages of it. And I wouldn't get rid of it for the world.
Yeah.
But for kids, it was their lifeline, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very difficult for parents to take that lifeline away, because they
Mm-hmm.
do all their everything is done on their phones. They learn from their phones, they sleep with their phones. It's an alarm clock, it's a camera, it's their social line, it's their gaming platform, it's their fun place, it's their everything.
Yeah.
but at the expense of real world experience. And we
That's
are
right.
human beings, we're not robots.
That's
So
right.
we have these innate needs to be connected physically to people, and they're not getting it.
Yeah.
And as the rates of anxiety, depression, and unfortunately suicide are through the roof compared to 10, 20 years ago, and they're escalating very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
And there's FOMO. When they're on their phones, they fear they're missing out because they look on their Snap maps
Oh, okay.
and
That's
they
what you
see
call
all
it.
their they see all their friends at a party and they're not there. So they fear they're missing out when they're on their phones, so it causes them anxiety. But if they don't have their phones, they fear they're missing out.
Yeah.
So they're anxious when they're on them, and they're anxious when they're off them. There's just no way
Mm,
around it for these kids. I mean, I feel so sorry for them.
yeah.
They don't realize it, but it's evident in their behavior that they're
Mm,
not thriving. They really are not. And they become more, they feel lonely, isolated,
mm.
alone, and they retreat to their rooms, but they have their phones. It's like a soother. Like their phones are like pacifiers.
They're going into another world.
But it doesn't fill them up. It doesn't meet
Yeah.
their basic needs to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to feel they
Yeah.
matter, that they're worthy. The phones strip them of their worth.
Yeah.
I mean, they identify their worth with how many likes they have on a photograph.
Yeah, I know. And the
And
photographs,
that's
like we have friends that are, well, friends of Devon are they're social influencers or whatever you call them. But they
mhm,
were showing me, they live in Bali, Indonesia, and they get sponsored to go on beautiful boats and take photos, and they're incredible. They have like a circus school there for kids. But Julia was showing me before they left about 2 years ago that I was looking at her photos, like, these are incredible. She says, yeah, but they're not real. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, well, I was there, but you see the gates in Bali, blah, 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 blah. Like there was 50 people around. I'd spend hours airbrushing and taking all this stuff out to get the perfect shot. And then I
mhm,
post it.
mhm.
And that's what you're saying here is
Yeah,
our teams and our people, even me, like I see these people like, wow, incredible photograph, incredible life
yeah.
this person's living. It's not real
But they don't
to
realize
some
it's not
degree. And they
real.
and they don't realize it's not
And
real.
they do that to themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they airbrush themselves. It's like, the Vogue, it's what
Yeah,
was
yeah.
happening in magazines. These, as a
I
young child,
know.
you'd look at these photographs, these beautiful models, and go, oh
I
my
know.
goodness, they're so pretty. Look at me, look at my hair, look at theirs.
Mm,
And you don't realize that it's airbrushed past the
mm-hmm.
point of, reasonable. But
Mm-hmm.
we're comparing ourselves to this airbrushed perfect thing.
Exactly.
And so the kids are doing that, and it's
Yeah.
not making them feel good about
Yeah.
themselves. Oh, don't get me started. I think we are up a creek without a paddle
Yeah.
when it comes to
But
that.
I
And
guess the one thing is I got to say is that I know probably when you grew up and when I grew up, we were always out in the bush. We were always
mhm,
out in the forest. We're playing with sticks. We're rolling in the dirt. And even now as an adult, we're out, like we're hiking. We're in the trees, and we're just, nature has this way of just grounding us and bringing us back. And
mhm.
it could be 20 minutes out and just go for a walk. It really I grew up my childhood like that, but as an adult, I just kept doing it, just kept going. And I
Yeah,
don't
me
rock
too.
climb. I did this year with my son once, but we're just always, and it just, no phone. You just ground yourself, and it's extremely
Yeah,
healing and
yeah, it is. I
therapeutic.
mean, I believe in Japan
Right.
that
The tree bathing in Japan.
forest
Yeah.
bathing is
Yes.
covered on medical insurance now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. And by forest
Yeah.
bathing, for anyone listening and you're thinking you've not heard of this, it's not, you don't go and lie in the forest naked. I mean, some people probably do, but they just
Yeah.
mean being in the forest
Yes.
and being surrounded by the sound, the smell, the all, to experience it through the five senses.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously uh, liberating and
It
grounding.
is. It
And
is. Yeah.
as kids, we didn't realize that, but we were out in
We
it
just
all the
did it. We
time.
just
We
did
just
it.
did
Yeah.
it.
Mm.
Now we realize it. We make sure we get it. And I know if I don't
Yes.
get it, I'm a very
Oh,
different
I
person.
go, yeah. I
Loop
go
the
nitty,
loop.
loopy,
Yeah.
loopy. Yeah.
And now you say to kids, get outside. You need to be in nature. And they look at you as if you're some, yogi. I'm like, no, you need it. Get out there. And they're like, well, what shall we
I
do?
know.
And they don't know what to do. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
generalizing, but they'd rather be on their phones. And it's
Yeah.
a very tricky thing to navigate for parents. So you
Yeah.
combine technology, ADD, learning challenges, whatever. It's not easy, you know, to navigate life as a parent today.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just, we're just fortunate that, we were able to take our kids, and we've always been outside. And I'm really proud of my daughter, actually our kids, and my daughter. She's just decided she wanted to go teach skiing in Japan. So she got her her teacher or whatever it is, instructor's certificate
Yeah.
here, and she took off to Japan at the beginning, like before COVID, and was teaching. I'm like, what, you're doing what? And that's what she was doing. But then yesterday, she has a really amazing group of friends, and they're all outdoor nuts. And yesterday, they're backcountry skiing up above the Callahan and Whistler up to Hanging Lake, and then they're building, and they're trying to do backflips. So they're jumping and they're crashing, and but then the sky's beautiful. And I'm looking at the picture that she sent, and I'm just like, this is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. Way to go, guys! Like, way to go, guys! Like, and there's like 15 of them. And they're all 21 years old, and they're just obsessed with always being. And now they're doing the cold plunges thing. So they were at Needle Lake last night after the skiing, and they're dunking. And it's just like, I'm like, okay, it's really cool to see you guys doing this.
It's good, and just that little bit of age on their side, once they push through to get into their later teens, early 20s. My daughter yesterday was out up the mountain with a group of girls building ski jumps.
Fantastic.
And filming it, because I mean that's what she's a slopestyle skier, so she's a park skier. And so so she was doing similar things, but
it's great.
We're lucky that we've got kids that want to be out there and doing it.
But it's that nature, like we said, the nature has such an amazing effect on everything, our whole being. And I mean, if I was like what I've learned, I mean, from you today, like the very first couple sentences, was the mindfulness. So that I mean, for us parents, it's just helped me so much in my later life. I dealt with anxiety from my business and COVID and all this stuff. And then actually Devin got me into doing this type of meditation and this Wim Hof breathing, and then the cold plunges and a lot more mindfulness. And every single day I just spent about an hour and a half doing all of this stuff, and it's changed my life. If I'd known this, like you said, when my kids were 1 or before we had kids, and started just practicing before we had kids, oh my gosh, it would have made such a huge difference. And then also, as you said, like a coach. I mean, you don't have to have them every day. You could check in with them once a couple of weeks or once a month or whatever it is, but just to keep that flow, and having somebody out there that's looking in from the outside that can help you. And it's just, I've had a coach for a million years, and it's one of the best decisions that I ever made, and it's really helped me. So thanks for that. And then your podcast as
585 episodes I think now.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And it's that Parenting in the Thick of It, that's what it's called. Is that what
it's on
That's
iTunes,
great.
it's on Spotify.
Beautiful.
I'm coming up for 1 million downloads. So
yes. There you go.
I know it's
there's a lot of people out there that are, this is great. So you're helping, and that's why Devin and I, we started this podcast, is because we've met so many amazing people around the planet that are making a huge impact on our world and really helping out. And you're definitely one of them. And thanks for what you're doing. I think it's fabulous. And
thank you.
If we'd only known some of this 20 years ago, it would have really helped for Reiko and myself raising our 3 kids. And I mean, you've got 3 kids too, so
sounds like you've done a pretty good job of it. And you know what, I think anyone that's dodged the technology bullet for as long as we can, it has definitely been easier, for sure. The influence of that is very difficult to navigate and find a balance, because I'm not saying don't have any of it, but we need to find the balance.
Yeah, exactly.
For our sakes and for our kids and for ourselves. I know my balance swings. I sometimes look at my phone and go, really? I've been on my phone for 2 hours and 20 minutes? No, it must be wrong. No, it's not.
I know. It's crazy. So now what you're going to do now, and what I'm going to do now, is we're going to go out for a walk. Because you're going to take your dogs out, we're going to take our dog out. It's a beautiful day. We're going to go out in the woods and hang out. That's maybe have a coffee afterwards, and just kind of process things. And that's exactly
what I'm going to do as well. So
beautiful. Actually, you might run into my daughter, Kina. She's I think she tweaked her neck or something doing a backflip yesterday. So she's going to go for a walk today around Whistler and just kind of take it easy. So you may run into
Nice.
her out there somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. She should get together with my daughter and go, and they can go and do backflips together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Backflips
That's
is
great.
mild, and backflips are mild in my world, Nigel. The backflips, like that's just a backflip. Like,
yeah,
okay,
I know.
don't go
The
there.
stuff that they're doing. I know Keena's boyfriend Theo, he's like doing backflips on mountain bikes and skis, and he's going like he's just like he used to be on the Whistler whatever the slope guys, the team or something there a bunch of years ago. But yeah, it's great. I love it. I love to see it. I love, but you're a parent, you're always looking, you're like, oh
yeah,
careful, be careful, but don't be careful, because I love to see them doing it. But yeah.
live free.
Live free, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Louise, like so much for coming on our show here. And please, like, subscribe as usual. And then what we'll do is we'll post all of the information for your book and your podcast and everything that you do on the episode. And we'll so thank you so much. And next time we'll get Devin on, if he's not working all night or whatever he's doing.
Let's have a chat with him as well. It'd be interesting to hear it from his perspective. I always enjoy speaking to a different generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So thank you